Welcome to Seniors Matter. I'm Brenda Charles Edwards, the host. We're here every Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on www.rainieravenueradio.world, your community radio station. You can also listen to us on YouTube, Facebook, and of course on the Rainier Avenue Radio app. We feature interviews with people that provide services or have valuable information for the community. Do you need financial documents notarized? Are you a person that needs documents read to you for clarity or completion? Just give me a call at Black Orchid Notary 206-683-2636. My guest today is J.R. Gillespie. He is with Allstar Financial Insurance, which provides quality service throughout the Puget Sound region, and they've been doing this since 1993. Welcome to the show, J.R. So good to see you.
And it's always good to see you as well.
Thank you. So, JR, you asked me, I told you I had a knee injury, and I don't know how it happened. I've maybe felt a little bit of pain for the last couple months, but February 15th, I got out of the car, started to walk, and I felt a sharp knife-like pain in my knee and twisted, something like somebody was twisting it. So anyway, ended up in emergency. The doctor said, yeah, you have some arthritis in your knee, but you have a tear in your lateral meniscus on the left side. So here I am, walking around, so to speak, with a cane, in pain, but doing different treatments, trying to get better. But I am not doing cortisone.
Well, I am so sorry to hear that, though.
Well, I am too, but so much is going on, and I feel overall health, I'm good. So I feel blessed that it's not supposedly not going to be operable. Need to be operable. I go in tomorrow for an MRI, so I'll know more.
Okay.
Hey, God is good. That's all I can say right now.
Well, I'll keep my fingers and toes crossed and hope things aren't worse than they are already.
Thank you, JR. Appreciate that. And I know you know that our health is the most important asset that we have, and we have to do whatever we can to keep our ability to physically do it. So would you mind sharing with them, how you got involved with Allstar Financial Insurance?
I've been in the insurance business now since 1993. And, I felt like there was a need. People, weren't considering. I've had some issues in my life. I'm a widower. I lost my wife. I had a 7-year-old son at the time. And I learned that, that bad things can happen to people. And if you don't protect yourself, then it just makes the bad things even worse, because, insurance provides a level of financial security, and without it, then you find out about things like bankruptcy, and I felt like many people just needed to, protect themselves. So I've been helping people now since 1993, and I've been literally helping thousands of people.
Yes. And, you are so right about insurance. When I was at the doctor, they said, well, the doctor said, I'd like for you to have an MRI. He says, but we've got to check with the insurances, blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, no problem. So then I find out, though, that my insurance said that I didn't have to have a referral. So guess what? I got in tomorrow without having to go through a lot of red tape. But I have really good insurance too. So, and I'm paying for it. And so is my husband. So, it's like, God is good. We're able to do this and reap the benefits. So, JR, what is longevity risk for not having insurance?
Well, longevity risk doesn't really care if you have insurance or if you don't. But, one of the things that is, a bigger and bigger issue is simply how long people are living. we're living longer and longer lifestyles due to, medical innovations and healthy living and clean water and all of those things. But, uh,
Don't
they're
drink
all,
don't drink bottled plastic water bottles though.
yes, but like in 1950, life expectancy was like 68 years old. And today, it's about 80 years old. And they say that the oldest person ever, is a 116-year-old, and the fastest growing segment of our society are people who are, 100 years or older. I believe your mother is 100 years old, and
She's
my
103.
103. Gosh, oh wow,
And if the Lord is
you know.
willing, she'll be 104 in November.
Next week my father turns 95,
All
and
right.
and then the problem, of course, with aging is that the risk of things happening, the risk of illness, and the risk of running out of money,
Hmm.
those things all increase with age.
Right.
um,
Well,
we
it's
all
funny though, JR, and speaking on that. So, like, mom retired from Boeing, and she got the best insurance policy she could get with Boeing at that time. And I said, "Well, that's kind of expensive." And she said, "Yes, but I don't want to be in a situation further down the line where I need some kind of care, but I can't get it because I don't have the insurance policy, what do you call it? The insurance,
what,
let me
like
just
pre-existing conditions, or what,
well,
what
no, for getting the highest one you can get, there's different levels of insurance. So
right.
she wanted the best one that she could get in case, not having any idea that she'd live this long, that she wouldn't be denied medical treatment because her insurance didn't cover it, so
Right, and I believe she has what's called Plan F, and if you have Plan F, then of course, if anything happens to you, it's treated, and all of the bill is paid. You don't have any
right,
out-of-pocket costs. And one of the issues a lot with different insurance plans, I always tell people that there's a bit of a cost share. The insurance pays so much, and you pay so much, and then sometimes the cost share can still leave you owing, $5,000, $10,000 of the bill. So
right.
it still makes people have to, especially like people on fixed incomes, because anytime there's an unexpected expense, it comes out of, if they have money in savings, or it can impact their quality of life or their disposable income.
Absolutely. And it was funny too because I went to physical therapy yesterday. And so, you have to fill all this paperwork out. So there was this one section about the financial. So they said, well, would you sign this saying that you'll pay for your copay? I said, would you check my insurance, please? So they checked and they said, oh, you don't have a copay. I said, thank you.
Yes.
I listened to my mother on that.
I understand. I do understand. Yes. So, but when people live longer, like I said, the risk of things happening is increases, and you can also, outlive your money. Not to mention, you just have to consider the cost of care. Nobody wants to go to a nursing home,
Right.
but sometimes it's unavoidable. And the longer you live, the higher the chance that you'll need this care, and it can be considerably expensive. I mean, right now, it averages like between $8,000 and $15,000 a month, depending on your level of care. And even now, a lot of the people that I might have spoken with, 10 and 20 years ago, are getting to the place where they're, experiencing, because as I had a funeral director one time, he used to joke, and he used to say, "None of us are getting out of here alive." And, you know, I,
Well, that's true.
so So we just have to prepare them, prepare ourselves. Not to mention, I think another thing, your mother retired from Boeing back at a time when people were getting pensions. And,
Right.
pensions are wonderful things because they're money you can't outlive. Uh, and nowadays most people don't have pensions, and they can outlive their money. If you had, even if you have a nest egg, if you had a $500,000 nest egg, but let's say you're used to living on $100,000 a year, and you get Social Security and it pays you, let's say, $3,000 a month, $36,000 a year. So that still means you need to replace $64,000 a year if you want to continue your standard of living, and that means you'll run out of your $500,000, in about 8 years.
Hmm.
Depending on interest and how your money earns, you might get a little bit longer than 8 years, but the risk of running out of money is substantial. And what happens if you still need money? You know, after you've run out of money. Nice thing about pensions is that they're income for life. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that all pensions are annuities. All
Yeah.
annuities aren't pensions, but all pensions are annuities, and
Hmm.
annuities are the only investment vehicle that will, provide you income for life. So I have, many people who will, like roll over, all or a portion of their 401k or IRA, and they'll put couple of 100,000 into an IRA, into a annuity, and have it set up where they're getting a check for maybe $2,000, but that's guaranteed for life, so you don't ever have to worry about outliving it. And it's always maybe a good idea that for your basic living expenses, what we call your mortgage, your utilities, and your groceries and stuff like that, that maybe you put those into fixed interest account, a guaranteed account, so that those things will be provided for. Um, Otherwise, you're trying to manage your investments. You have a couple of bad years, and all of a sudden, instead of having you know 20 years worth of money, you only have 5 years worth of money. I'm giving a really worst case scenario, but
Right.
that's what
But
happened
I'm
to
sure it's
people.
happening to somebody.
Mm. If you go back to 2001 or you go back to 2008,
Ugh.
literally,
Yeah.
those things happen to people, and you don't have time to recover. They tell you, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you can be very, very aggressive because you have time to recover. But if you wait until you're in your 60s and 70s, you don't have time to recover. So it's very important that you don't, that you don't waste, lose any money.
Yes, I agree. I'm going to take a quick commercial break. Want to make more community broadcasts like this possible? Donate today on Venmo at Rainier Avenue Radio or online at rainieravenue.world/donate. And we thank you for making community broadcasting possible. Yay! Okay, so JR, stop laughing. Um, so, we were just talking about inflation, and I was thinking back, and I think it was 2008. Um, I had a rental, and Paul had a rental. And so our renters, especially his renter, um, ran into some financial difficulties. And it was a challenge. And we had a property manager, but this person wasn't wanting to pay your rent, and so you try to give some leeway, but you're paying the mortgage. So it's like you only can do so much. But what was interesting with all that, though, is how, and what made me decide not to want to be renting any property out. If I own any property, it's going to be a timeshare or something that I can actually use when I want to use it. But her and her dog moved out, but they left the house a mess. So it's like you feel sorry for people. I mean, it's not like I wasn't hit on hard times with 2008, but when you know you have medical bills and all of that, it just that type of thing just doesn't help at all. You know, I
And
hope we
that's
don't
the,
run into that same type of economy issue in the near future.
and I think that's, what we call, risk. I mean, that's everything has a risk. If you're every investment, every business has a risk. If you decide to be a landlord, then there's risk associated. I think all too often people think that stuff can only good things can happen, but we all know that bad things can happen too. So
Right,
if you don't take into consideration that bad things can happen and then outcomes aren't necessarily the outcomes that you want, and you don't have contingency plans. And I think ultimately insurance is a contingency plan. It
okay,
says if this thing, even if it is a thing that you don't want to have happens, are you prepared? Are you going to be able to, as I say, the biggest difference between a problem and an inconvenience is how much money you got. If it's a
right.
if you can pay for it, it's an inconvenience. When you can't pay for it, it's a problem.
Yeah,
You know,
most
I
definitely.
yeah, I have rentals as well, and some of your tenants are great tenants, and they pay
Mhm.
you on time, and some tenants, mess up your place, and you might have to evict them, and you might have to incur those costs. You can
Yes.
invest in stocks. A lot of people, thought they could make a ton of money in Bitcoin, and a lot of people lost a ton of money in Bitcoin because,
Yeah, they
you
sure
know,
did.
yeah. And everything you do is on this risk return continuum. And so what do but then there are certain things with guarantees. Now, a lot of times when you have guarantees, it's like if you put money in the bank, it's guaranteed, but it's only paying you maybe 1% interest. Now,
Right,
uh, you could, I have, annuities right now that are paying, 5% interest guaranteed for 10 years. And this is, you have no risk to principal and you can earn 5%. If you want to assume a little bit more risk in sense of that you might not earn, you could earn a little bit more, uh, then you can maybe earn a few more percentage points in interest. You might have to tie your money up a little bit longer because you either have to assume a higher level of risk, or you have to maybe tie up your money for you know a few years so that you can earn higher rates of return. But everything functions on the risk return continuum.
right. So JR, we grew up with the thing that you work, you save, you retire, and then you try to leave a legacy for your children. And I don't know if that's still working that way. But are there life insurance policies that provide benefits for long-term care and illness?
Yes, there are. Yes, there are. And in fact, when I'm talking to people, usually those are the ones that I try to talk to people about because, it's like, what do they call those knives that have, all the scissors and the screwdriver and, all the different things, or even, back when you had stereo systems and all of the components were in one piece. So I
Right,
kind of like insurance policies that do more than one thing. So you can get a life insurance policy that only pays if you die. But nowadays, they have many policies that include what we call living benefits that say if something was to happen, if I became ill, if I needed nursing care, I can access money from my life insurance policy. I think if you're over 50 years old, you probably want to get a permanent policy. I know many people get term because it's less expensive. Of course, the biggest problem with term is that you know if you outlive the term, you might not be able to afford the renewal rates, and you don't have any equity in the policy. There's no money accumulating. But if you had a a universal life policy or index universal life policy, then you know that that policy, the premiums are going to be fixed for all of your life, and you don't have, and you're accumulating equity in the plan.
What's a good age to start that?
Well, like I said, I think you can get life insurance at any time. The younger you do it, the less expensive it is, because death is not an if, death is a when. It's
Hmm.
going to happen to all of us. We just don't know which day of the week. Now, the
Right.
thing with life insurance is that it increases at an increasing rate. So whereas the difference between 20 and 21 might be, a couple of cents, the difference between, 69 and 70 is, maybe, you know, $50. So the differences increase as you increase, because we're all moving closer and closer to the inevitable. And like what is it, a hyperbola? That curve when you were taking geometry, the one that increases at an increasing rate. That's kind of how it goes.
Okay. I love that.
I think it's a hyperbola or parabola, or somebody will come in, call in and say, no, no, it's a different thing.
Well, at least we know they're listening.
Yes.
So, we've talked over the years about of the importance of planning. And, I am a facilitator for end of life planning. And I've also stepped off a little bit into a legacy vault that people can make a roadmap for their family so that when someone dies, they're not racing around trying to figure out, well, where are all his. Oh, perfect example. So when someone dies, I've noticed that a lot of people must not have the password to the Facebook account, because every year you get a notice that's that person's birthday and they've been deceased for a while. And so it's like, okay, here's something that'll take care of that. But I'll talk to you and maybe even talk about it on the
Mm.
show one day. But it's like, you got to plan, folks. You just got to plan. And I know how much we don't like talking about death. But as JR said, it's not, it's when you're going to die, not if you're going to die.
Yes. That is 100%. I know with my dad, we finally had he finally, had to do a little bit of a what we like to call estate planning, where you take care
Hmm.
of a will.
Right.
You should have a power of attorney. Somebody should be able to access your accounts and your bank, your financial accounts, if and when you're unable to do so. You might want to have a healthcare directive, stuff like do not resuscitate orders and stuff like that. I'm not an attorney, so you'd probably want to talk about a lot of that stuff with an attorney. But funding those things is important, because, like I said, if you want to leave a legacy to your children so that they have, money, so that they're not starting at zero, or if not your children, your grandchildren, because that's always one of the things we talk about, how we want to accumulate wealth. But if everybody starts at zero, then, I mean, you want to give somebody a step up so that they're not starting at zero. And you can do that. You can leave your children or your grandchildren, you know a few dollars, and maybe they can use that money to start a business. Maybe they can use that money to buy a home, things that they may otherwise not be able to do. It's important. I think if we love our children, and like I said, we want them to have a better life than the one we're having, then, you know, those are just things that we should, I just think those things are good ideas.
Oh, they definitely are. And, and like you said, if you are blessed to own a home, saying that when you pass, the home goes to, depending on how many kids you have, you know, um, that child, or they divide it equally. And, if they sell it, then they get the, profits equally. But yeah, it's all about planning. I mean, that's I guess the bottom line for me, because my dad died when he was 96. And prior to that, for a couple years, I said, Dad, if you should die or, get really sick, what do you want to do? And, where are things? And
Exactly.
Dad said, up to the very end. I'll deal with it when the time comes. And I said, under my breath, no, you won't. We will.
That's going. How you gonna do that if you're not here? But and planning is it's important, and I encourage my clients, and then we sit down periodically and review it. But you and I have no cost consultation, so I'll sit down and we can look at where you're at, kind of figure out where you want to be, kind of all of them things,
Right.
and I'll give you some recommendations. I mean, I'd always want you to do business with me, but you might, do with somebody else. But I'm gonna give you some good recommendations, and then hopefully, the only thing that I hate the most is people that I talk to, and I give them some recommendations, and then I talk to them, years later, and they go, "Gosh, I wish I would have acted
Oh,
on the recommendations that you gave me, because this is
mhm,
what I'm going through now."
mhm.
And and we never know when it's going to happen. I
Nope.
only know that, like the man said, it's going to happen one of these days. It's unavoidable and it's inevitable to
Absolutely.
just about everybody. I know we all hope we're lucky enough to go in our sleep, but
Yeah, right. That may not happen.
exactly, and not a pleasant subject. Nobody likes to talk about it, but you know, when I go to the hospital, when I go to the nursing homes, it seems like they're full of people. So
Yes,
it's not as if it doesn't happen.
absolutely. Well, JR, my time is up. Thank you for coming on as always. And of course, we will have you back again. This is Brenda Charles Edwards, host of Seniors Matter. You can listen to us live on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your South Communities radio station, YouTube app. We're here on Fridays at 12:30. Thank you, JR. Thank you, my listening and viewing audience. And a special
Mm.
thanks to MC Class for letting me use his music, Ragtime. Have a great weekend. Be safe and live your life like it's golden. Talk to you later, JR.
Okay. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Yeah.